Welcome back to the Black Pearl. Marine Tech Mike here. We are wrapping up our third season, getting ready for fourth season. And so I am going to answer a couple of questions that come up all the time. So every September, when class comes back in session, we have all the new technicians in training, our electricians and mechanics. They come down to the Black Pearl. We do meet and greets, and the boat is one block from school, so we get to hang out and visit and start talking boats. And we use this as a training platform for students as well. And it's, of course, my passion. I just love hanging out on my boat. So the two things that get asked all the time is, why does this boat have a Claw-Foot bathtub? Kind of unique, I know. I don't know that I recommend it, but we really enjoy it. And how in the world did we ever replace the engine in this thing? Because when students come on board, they want to know what engine it is. And it's been repowered. And so this boat was built by my good friend Denny, who has since passed on, but wonderful man, great mentor. And he's the one that introduced me to boating back in 1991, 92 on board this vessel. And so originally equipped with an 85 horse Perkins. If you're just interested in how we take an engine that is actually, we had to lift the valve cover about 10 feet to get it out of this boat, then skip to minute about there. But first we'll talk just briefly about the Claw-Foot bathtub, because that is such a unique story. And I don't have a lot of, I got a few old photographs of this process, but what happened was in the 60s, Denny was going to build a wooden boat. Luckily in 1970, late 69, he had this 47 Skookum hull laid up. And he's going to build a boat. Had the dream. It's fiberglass, thank goodness. Here's a picture of him. I met him, like I said, in the early 90s. And I was actually alumni, Skagit Valley College, where I now teach. I did a direct transfer and did a 2-year degree and went down to the UW. And I took a photography class because I like taking pictures. And so there was Denny, did a little black and white, down on the dock with his coffee. At that time, he was putting on the cap rail and the lifelines and stuff like that. And so I had asked him about the story of the bathtub. And what it was is, you can see in the head here, if we go back through the hallway and look, it's a 6.5 foot authentic tub is what it looks like. It's got the original brass feet. But what Denny did is he bought a tub, I don't know where, a want ad or however you found things back in the 70s. And he tied that cast iron tub. He didn't own a pickup truck. He was building this boat with a jigsaw. Didn't even have a table saw yet. And he put it on the back of that 1960-something Chevy car. And it kind of went between the roof and the trunk. And he took it out to Skyline where the boat was being built. And what he did is he used the tub, the iron tub, for a mold. And so he molded the new tub and then took the feet from the iron one and actually attached them to the composite one. And the reason is just weight. This boat would, list big time if he hadn't done that. So he built the tub, put it in the boat. When Lynette and I ended up getting the boat, we actually added a shower attachment, which was really nice. So, you can sit in the tub, you turn on the light, you can read a book. We have a 20-gallon hot water heater and the diesel stove. The new Yanmar, shore power, they all heat the water. So we got a good amount of water. You can actually take a hot bath on board. And I asked Denny, why a bathtub, And he said, well, he had been reading the books about people who sailed around the world, and that was his original dream, sail around the world. And they had said one thing that every sailor longs for after long passages is a freshwater bath. And so, that's why he did it. But what was really cool is he then took that iron tub, once he got the composite one built and put the feet on it, put it up on some cinder blocks, and he put a couple of propane burners, the crab cookers that we have, big ones, on the underneath the tub. And he took the old drain and put a spigot on it, and he actually used it to melt the lead for the keel. So this thing is internally ballasted. I don't know. I'd have to look at my Ed Monk drawing. I don't research it. How many, 10,000 pounds of lead or whatever it is, a lot. But it's all internal. And so he was state patrol. So Denny used to drive around and collect wheel weights for years as he was building the boat. And what he did is he melted down all the lead he could get in the cast iron tub. And then he would open that spigot, and he had some little half-size banana bread loaf type pans, and he filled those and made lead brick. And then he stacked all those brick into the keel and then flooded them with epoxy, and then put a little composite layer on top of them and locked it all in. Did a beautiful job. So it's all internally ballasted, no issues, hasn't been for 50 years. But that's the story of why the boat had a bathtub. He read about it, he used it, reused the iron. I mean, what a great story. So I get asked that question again and again by new technicians. So that is the story of the Claw-Foot Bathtub. And then the next story, or the next thing that students ask all the time is, this thing has, I mean, being a big motor sailor, Denny put the engine in as low as he could, so it was perfectly horizontal, straight out the back, which meant that the engine is really low and really hard to service, but also very efficient. And when it came time to repower, so the reason we repowered is this boat originally came with Onan World War II generator and a 85 horsepower Perkins. And the Perkins was sucking oil. The first time I was on board the boat, it only had like 900 hours on it. I don't think it was even ever broke in properly. Denny would take it out, turn it to like 1700. It had a very, very flat prop on it. Never got a load. And he just motored it like that for 900 hours. When I got the boat, it had about 1,500 hours, and it always used oil. And I tried, getting it hot and getting the rings to seat. Just wasn't happening. So, fast forward, his 30-year-old engine, all the pumps were old, everything was old. I've been working on it. Turns out the front crank appeared to be bent a little bit. And so, but it was sucking a quart of oil every 25 hours. And a local guy, Andy Stewart, they had this wooden boat, which was deemed no good. It needed way too much work. And it was an awesome story. It was a beautiful interior. So one of our former students, Zach, he took the boat and uses it for an office. He trucked it down to his property on Whidbey Island. And I took the engine out of it because it had been repowered at 37 hours on a 110 horsepower Yanmar. Actually, I thought it was a 77 horsepower engine, is what I was told. Yarded it out of the boat, put it in the back of my truck, and that was the kilowatt rating. It was actually 110. So we went from 85 up to 110, which we really didn't need, but it's what we got. And so, yeah, how do you go about getting an engine in a boat like this? So the pilot house has 6-foot headroom, and then 5 foot from the floorboards there down into the engine machinery space, and then another foot below that is the actual engine. So the valve cover literally had to come up 9 to 10 feet in order to get it out of the boat. And students are always blown away, like, how do we do that? So you're driving the boat up there. That's where we have to get the engine out of. And we had the floor, which is in this area right here, up here. So we have these removable boards. And then in the engine space itself, we have another set of hatches and insulation, and those are removable. So we remove the Perkins, and essentially what we do is the floorboards are removable. So the pilot house floorboards are 4 inches thick, soundproof. We got lead in there and soundproof insulation and whatnot. But you can remove all those, and then you can also remove in the machinery space to the engine room another set of those 3.5-inch boards. So you just take all the boards out of the way, and that gives you great access all the way down to the engine. And so it's buried down under the floor. Got a little video, some B-roll there. It's got a serpentine belt kit we put on it. But what happened is I went down to Andy Stewart's. The other unique thing about this repower is we did it in the water. We never hauled the boat. And that's just because I'm a cheapskate. And I don't want to pay lay days. And I want to be able to work on it over a period of months and do it right. And so I went down to the yard and we forklifted. I went and disconnected the Yanmar out of the old wooden boat and popped it in the back of my pickup truck. And I just pulled up to the commercial dock right here at my marina, and we loaded that Yanmar onto the back deck. So the Perkins is still running, ran fine. It just sucked a lot of oil. And we set that thing down up on the seat, ratchet strapping it down, had it ready to go. And so then, what do? Well, the Perkins, I did a lot of measurements, had to fit out the back door. And so you start stripping it out. You know, the starter and the alternator and the exhaust manifold, all that stuff just comes off. And once you get all that stuff off and you pile it up in the back of your pickup truck, you can kind of see and get down to where that engine could actually come up. And so I had a lot of lighting down there, and nothing against Perkins. You know, it was a great engine, you know, and you can rebuild them totally fine. But I got this Perkins, or the new Yanmar, for probably a third the cost of a new one or something. I don't know, half at least. And so what we did is we took the windows out of the pilot house, and there's my good friend Mike Schweitzer there, former instructor, and you saw us repowering his boat home again. He's a boat guy. We love fixing boats. That's what we teach everybody, fix boats. So we built a beam and some 4x4s and some plywood reinforcement to distribute the load on the deck. And we actually built this lifting apparatus. Once we did that, you know, we tried to time it. And we had a week of no rain because I had to take the windows out. And we had the heat running. It was winter, you know, it was fall. But you just put a come along on once that engine was stripped down, and we just lifted it up full 10 feet. And there I am all smiling because it's coming up, and Clifton, who works with me. So there's that, basically that's the floorboards where your feet are when you're driving the boat. And once we got it up high enough, we put some 4x4s and we built a skid right out the back door because the back door has a lip and stuff we didn't want to damage. So we put this structure in there, and then we took and tied a line to it around a snatch block to the winch, the primary winch, and we just slid that Perkins right out the back of the door. So current students, former students, if you're wondering how it happened, that's just like that. You take out windows, you build a structure, you clear everything out, strip it, up it goes, take the pressure off, slide it out the back door. I mean, how easy was that, right? And, you know, once we got it outside, we tarped up the engines and got everything ready. And then it was time for me to go ahead and do something I'd wanted to do since I owned the boat. It was pretty dirty down in there. You can imagine that, you know, we had lost some antifreeze and stuff like that. The boat's built with a really nice catch pan, so none of the fluids, if it leaks, go into the bilge. You have to leak gallons before it'll go into the bilge. And so I got to clean everything. I got to paint everything. One of the reasons that the Yanmar that we bought was a good deal is because it came with a bell housing for Borg Warner velvet drive. So it would mate right up with my existing transmission. And so that was really nice. We did end up with putting a new propeller on it. But once we got everything clean, it was just a simple process of repeat. Put the cribbing back up. We used the boom and the halyard, and we swapped position. The old Perkins to the new Yanmar, switched them side by side, slid it in, grabbed a hold of it with our lifting gear, and we had put the windows back in temporarily while I did all the cleaning. So we just waited for the weather window, opened them up, and we dropped it back in. And I had to leave it set up for a couple of days. There we are. It was super tight. It wasn't easy, but it actually dropped down from that beam into the hole. And once we were in the hole, we didn't know how all the mounts would be and stuff. I did end up having to put some G10 under the front mounts to get the alignment just right, but it wasn't the end of the world. There it is setting with just some wood blocks so we could kind of rough it in. And there's that G10, that green material there. Worked out perfect. We just set it up there and got the boat all aligned and everything. And then once it was aligned, we were still in the water. We coupled it to the propeller. Now, we knew the propeller would be wrong, but I was scheduling it. I'm like, I want to go out and see what the performance is at different RPMs, the weight of the boat, so I could give it to the prop shop so we could get the exact right prop. And so even though I knew we were going to, and that way when we hauled out, it was like a bottom paint, swap a prop. It was just a 1 week turnaround. But once it was running, we did some sea trials. We took and went over back to T-Dock, and there's the old Perkins. We lifted her out, and Got the back deck. You can see there's still a little bit of cleanup to do. Man, repowering takes a lot of cleaning. And then, of course, there's Clifton. He did a lot of the work. He helped me. He's the first mate when we go on flotillas. He said, let's grab a cold beer and go out and sail. And so we pulled out the head sail. It's kind of ironic. You get a new engine, you just run out and shut it off right away and go sailing for an hour. And we just drifted around with the head sail. But there you go. That's the story of the Black Pearl. Stay tuned. We have some free boats, a couple boats we're selling. We have our next project lined up. We got all sorts of stuff happening. But new students, thanks for watching this video. Now you know the story of the two questions that get asked the most. And so we can tell you other stories while we're on board doing our meet and greet. So thanks for watching.